Welcome to Film Rush. Welcome back to Film Rush Podcast, everybody. I hope I sound good to you guys because I'm a little further from the mic today. Trying out a new, comfier chair, but we're going to talk about streamed movies and television no matter how far away I am. Logan, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's been a wonderful weekend. The weather's been nice. I've gotten a lot of house projects done and watched one particularly good movie recently, and I'm excited to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, I got a bunch to talk about tonight. I'm pretty stoked about the lineup we got going on. I think we should just get right into it.
I think we should. It's a meaty lineup tonight.
It is. So what do you want to start on? You want to start on your side or on my side?
Let's go with your side, because I don't even know what that is.
So Heartbreakers is my recommend today. It's a little bit of a caveat because it's kind of got its ups and downs, but we'll get into it. Heartbreakers was from 2001. And it is a film starring Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt, along with Jason Lee, Gene Hackman, Ray Liotta. A pretty good who's who cast, especially for the time. But like a lot of these people are still famous. It's about these two women, a mother and a daughter, who are fraudulent. They'll trick men into falling for their feminine wiles in order to marry them, but then break that marriage by like convincing the man to cheat on them. That's usually the move, and then they'll divorce them for half of their fortune, and that's the whole thing. It's basically, I realized that Heartbreakers is kind of what, what's her name, Emma Stone was doing in Zombieland.
Oh yeah, that's what she and Abigail Breslin are doing. They're doing these ploys on men to distract them and then take a bunch of their money.
Yeah, so that's basically if you took that bit of Emma Stone and made it a whole movie. That's Heartbreakers. And
okay, all right.
Heartbreakers came first. Now it's a comedy. Comedy, crime, romance is how IMDb defines it, and technically that's true. As I said, it has ups and it has downs. I like the dynamic between Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt. They have great chemistry. Hewitt isn't typically like the best actress to watch in a lot of the things she's in. Not to knock any of her fans or anything who like her. She does a good job here, though. The two romances that we spend the most time on, one of them being fraudulent, the other one being unexpectedly true for the character who is experiencing it. So Jennifer ends up falling for Jason Lee, who is My Name is Earl, that actor.
And Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, Alvin and the Chipmunks. But
that's where I saw him first, I think.
While their romance it starts out kind of cute and interesting with her being kind of a bitch to him. Like, I don't use that word lightly. Like, that's the whole point, is she's being mean to him. And he's just a snarky guy who lets it roll off his shoulders. It goes too far in the sense that she is nuts. Like, she does some crazy out of the left field crap in this movie to him multiple times. And in like a month, he's in love with her.
So it happens like really fast.
Yeah, it's concerning how she is so mean to him. And so unreliable, so hot and cold, so often in this movie. And he's just all there for it. He's all in, day one, let's go. And he never stops. Their romance is the most unrealistic part of the entire film. And this is a film about women just seducing men to divorce them for their money. Like, I'm sure people have done it, but no one, like, does that for a career. This is, like, what they do. Or at least, I've never met anyone who does this. Overall, it was pretty good. The ending of the movie is the best part. It's like the most sincere and I think the most enjoyable part. But I think that if this sounds up anyone's alley, go for it. I am recommending it, so it does have some moments. One of the characters at the beginning, played by Ray Liotta, he's a dirtbag pretty much, but he ends up being the character making the most sense by the end of the film. Like, he calls out the bullshit of the movie straight up. And I was like, why is he suddenly, like, the most transcendent character of the movie? So there's enjoyable bits to this film.
I see that Carrie Fisher is in this movie.
Yeah, she's in it for like one scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of this movie. Like, I don't know anything about this. I'm obviously familiar with all these actors, but this is not on my radar in the slightest. So I'm gonna have to check this out. I'm curious about this.
I think you'll have probably similar issues with it as I do. but like I think you'll overall enjoy it.
I think who might really enjoy it, my wife. I think my wife might actually enjoy this movie more than me.
That's why I watched it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the wife, because she really wanted me to watch Heartbreakers, and we were talking about like what it would take to get me to watch it, and it just so happened to coincide with the fact that she's never seen The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, Andrew Garfield?
Yeah, she's at certain times she's a hardcore Sam Raimi's Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Like, she's like, Tobey Maguire was my Spider-Man back then when those movies were coming out. She's like, I just never saw Amazing Spider-Man, and I never really wanted to because it was Tobey Maguire or bust, and now Tom Holland, she said. I was like, well, you gotta see it. I was like, at least the first one. I was like, the first Amazing Spider-Man has some good moments. I enjoy it.
There's definitely some good spider scenes in that movie. It's not a bad movie. I mean, it's still 6 or 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield's chemistry is just off the fucking charts.
Oh, yeah. I love them as a couple.
And so, like, I was like, well, okay, you watch The Amazing Spider-Man for me, I'll watch Heartbreakers for you. So now she owes me Amazing Spider-Man after this.
It's a good trade. I've been trying to get Jacqueline to watch The Amazing Spider-Man. I haven't been trying, like, super hard, but I've been trying to get her to watch that.
Same.
Like, once a week, slide it into the what could we watch tonight discussion. But she hasn't seen the X-Men movies, and I'd kind of rather, like, pull the Superman card on, superhero card on getting her to go through the X-Men series. But that might be a while.
Nice. Yeah, I think they're worth seeing at least once, though. I don't often revisit the original X-Men movies, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
That's my recommend. Heartbreakers. That was on HBO Max, if anyone's wondering. So, Logan, what do you got going on over there?
All right, well, I think we're going to have an HBO Max heavy episode, because my next thing is...
It seems like it.
It's on HBO Max. Now, just full transparency, I didn't watch all of these movies on HBO Max. I had a couple of them on disc. I did not have all of them. But the Hobbit trilogy is something that my wife and I watched about 2 weeks ago. We'd seen it before, but she had only seen each movie once. And it's kind of one of those things of she'd seen them all once in theaters, 6 to 8 years ago. So it's been a hot minute. And I had seen the first 2 Hobbit movies, I don't know, 6 or 7 times each. And I'd only seen Battle of the Five Armies once in theaters when you, me, and Lucas went to see that in theaters there in Missouri.
Right. I forgot that I saw it with you.
Yeah, that was the only time up until 2 weeks ago that I had seen the Battle of the Five Armies.
Nice.
I just soured on it so much over time that I never wanted to go back to it.
You're not alone on that, for sure.
Yeah, I had an okay-ish time watching it, but it was like the more I thought about that movie, the more I was just dissatisfied with the Hobbit trilogy overall. So, the Hobbit trilogy, it's obviously John and I, especially John and I, could sit here and make hours and hours of conversation about the Hobbit trilogy. But just
I
for
could
this,
have my own podcast about the Rings and the Hobbit movies. Like, that could be a whole show.
I would love to maybe sign up to appear once a month on that podcast. I don't know if I could handle it weekly, but
I don't know if it would be weekly. I think it would have to be, because even an audience would get drained on it. So it'd have to be like a once a month event thing.
And there might be something to think about there with the new Lord of the Rings show coming to Amazon in, a year, 2 years? I don't remember when we're going to get that, but we're getting closer.
Someday.
We're getting closer. That's all I can say. It'll probably come out at the same time that Avatar 2 comes out, if that ever happens.
It's got a title now. It's called The One Ring.
Oh, is it? I hadn't seen that.
Yeah. I think that's a shitty title, because if it's about the wider world of Middle-earth, yeah, eventually things lead to the One Ring, but it's, Middle-earth isn't about the One Ring. So I don't know why they're calling it that, to be honest. It came right after Elijah Wood said that it was dumb they were calling it the Lord of the Rings project or show. He's like, because it's not going to be Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a book series that we based movies off of. It's not just the general title for the whole universe.
Right.
So he's like, so it's dumb. And then like a few days later, they're like, well, it's called the One Ring. I'm like, it's still dumb, but okay, there you go. A little taste of a rant I give you for Lord of the Rings related stuff.
I hadn't heard that. I don't like it. I hope that's a working title, and that once we see the trailer, there'll be something a little bit more sensationalized there. But anyway, really what I wanted to bring up here is I wanted to express kind of how I felt about the movies overall, and then tap into you and see where you were, because you and I haven't talked about the Hobbit movies specifically in a while. I think there's a reason why, but we haven't talked about the Hobbit movies in a little bit. I walked into this trilogy kind of lukewarm on the first one, more positive than negative on the second one, and more negative than positive on the third one. I think that once Bilbo says, I'm going on an adventure, and he runs off, up until the moment that Smaug dies, I think that section right there is a really, really strong section of the movie. But there's a whole half of the movie before Bilbo leaves, and then there's a whole entire movie after Smaug dies that I'm just not as invested in.
Yeah.
Everything where you've got Bilbo on the journey with the dwarves, there's a lot of bullshit you have to deal with the Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
They look so good and yet so bad at the same time.
Yeah, I don't get it. They're so crisp and clean looking, but at the same time, it is a look and it doesn't work.
Yo,
it's not the color grading because it's not like it's overly color graded. It's normal colors on screen. Trees are green, brown is brown. But like it just seems like you cranked up the sharpen on your Snapchat picture too high.
Right. Yep.
that's all
and
the
moon is like 80,000 times brighter than it should be,
for sure.
And there's so much like glare at night. I think that the orcs look horrible. There's a couple of scenes where they use people in makeup, but for the most part, all the orcs that matter are all CG. And like the scrotum beard Goblin King looking dude.
Yeah, I don't know where that
I don't like it. I don't like that at all. I love the Goblin song in the book, but that scene just it doesn't match up to the book for me.
That whole section doesn't match up at all. It's kind of one of the things that is a nail in the coffin of The Hobbit is that action no longer matters. In the sense that there's no stakes. If you watch the Goblin section, the dwarves at Bilbo and Gandalf get 0 scratches on their entire bodies.
Yeah, it's a video game scene.
Like they're captured and they're almost tortured, but then they're rescued and then they run through and barrel through an army of goblins with 0 of them touching them. And then they fall 1,000,000 miles down a cliff on a physics-defying bridge thing, and then crash into the ground alive. Then they have that Goblin King, who probably weighs a literal ton, smash down on top of them, and all you get is one of the dwarves going, "You've got to be joking!" And then they cut away, and they're running off away from the goblins. I'm like, so they're not in danger. We're not going to get a Boromir situation. None of these people are going to fucking die. Because they're just rubber.
And let's not even talk about the barrel scene, because the barrel scene is it's like that but double, because it's so much fun, but when you really think about it, it's so fluffy.
God, yeah.
Like,
when the fat dwarf rolls in his barrel onto land,
yes,
and like then gets the 2 axes and uses the barrel like armor and eviscerates orcs that would just
pops out like something out of a Mario game.
Yeah, if that dwarf was fighting orcs from Lord of the Rings, the movies, he'd be dead. But he's fighting Hobbit orcs, which are just dumb little dolls that they could smack aside through most of these films. That is a problem. Not to say there aren't highlights. There are. I like, honestly, everything in Bag End. I think they characterize Bilbo perfectly. I think he's cast well. I love the conversation he has with Gandalf when they meet. I love his reaction to company when he's about to eat dinner, and the bell rings, and Bilbo's like, "Who the fuck's coming to my house?" I feel that energy. I love when he says, "I'm going on an adventure." The song they sing in Bag End, the mountain, I can't remember what it's called, Misty Mountain song.
The sea shanty kind of song they sing.
When the dwarves all sing together. All that stuff was like so awesome when I first saw it in the theaters, and I was like, oh, we're in for a good fucking time. Like, this is gonna be great. Even like the part where they're throwing dishes around and doing musical stuff, it felt right because that's what the Hobbit book is like. It's got music.
Yeah, I did enjoy the dinner
So
scene.
like I was okay with accepting that part of this universe, but it just ended up breaking down way too many places. It had really dumb subplots. I was okay with them bringing Legolas in because even though people bitch that he's not in the book, they go to Mirkwood and Legolas is alive during the events of The Hobbit. He would be there. They see the elven king of Mirkwood in the book. They would see his son. Like, it's just because Legolas didn't exist yet. That's why he's not in the book. Like, he wasn't in Tolkien's head yet. So, you can't blame the filmmakers for filling in that gap. The fact that he has a subplot romance with Tariel, who has a subplot romance with a dwarf, That's all garbage.
I think that is the weakest story in the entire Hobbit trilogy, because they literally have, I want to say it's 3 actual word exchanging conversations before the Feely or Keely, whichever one it is, dies.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
Like, literally, while he's, like, bleeding out on the ice at the end of the 3rd movie, I looked at Jacqueline and I was like, and that's their 4th conversation. It is so thinly written.
Yeah. I think there's 3 major things I can point to that really doomed this. One, it was rushed, and by that I mean they gave Peter Jackson 6 months, which was to do the amount of work that the previous director, Guillermo del Toro, had gotten 2 years to do. So it was rushed, and one of the clear examples of that is when Thorin is running down the tree to fight Azog at the end of the first film, having that epic like run through the fire moment where before he gets decked and there's no fight. But that moment, what theme plays while he's running down the tree? The theme for the Nazgul. The Nazgul theme from Lord of the Rings plays over Thorin's victorious charge towards Azog. I'm like, wait, why would you use a villain theme for the heroic moment that Thorin's having right now?
I must not have been paying enough attention because I didn't catch that.
It's easy to miss because the reason it's in there is because the editor or Peter or whoever made the decision was like, it sounds epic, so we'll just use that. Because they were in a hurry. They filmed the majority of The Hobbit. It was going to be 2 movies. They had gotten like 80% of it done when the studio went, we're going to make 3 movies. So then they had to audible and shoot pickups and re-edit, reorganize.
Such a bad business decision.
Yeah, and that is one of the major things as to why this didn't work out. And I forgot what the 3rd one was, but overall, Peter just didn't want to do this. He had Guillermo del Toro as a director for a reason. He was a producer. He was a writer. He was going to have a hand in it. But Peter was burnt out on Middle-earth back then. Like, he shouldn't have had to have been forced to do it. But the studio just dragged their feet on Guillermo. And once Guillermo was like, I can't be here forever and not film this. So he left. And then the studio peer pressured Peter Jackson into taking the job. Because they're like, everyone wants you to do it. And they couldn't move forward without it. So he just had to do it. And then he was burnt out and it sucked. That was my rant to finish the Hobbit part for me anyway. If you have more things to say, go for it. But that's my piece.
Yeah, there's so much messiness behind the creation of this movie. You absolutely get the sense of that when you're in the movie. Other things to say, like, it's strange because I love some of these characters so much. Like, Martin Freeman is Bilbo. Like, that is the perfect Bilbo. I love that casting so much.
Straight up.
And for Jacqueline and I too have binged season 4 of Sherlock like 3 or 4 days before we went through the Hobbit movies. That was perfect. It was so great. To then turn around and watch Sherlock and Watson as Smaug and Bilbo. Mm-hmm. Loved it. Smaug is the best part, the best character, the best looking stuff, like the best sound editing, like everything. Like, Smaug is perfection. Smaug would be in my top 3 like visual effects, special creature effect kind of things in Hollywood. Right up there with Gollum, and I would say Caesar from Planet of the Apes. Those to me are the 3 best like CGI fake looking creatures that we have seen in movies. Smaug is just breathtaking. Like, my pulse will always go up, my palms always get sweaty. The dialogue is so delicious, and hearing Cumberbatch just chew up that dialogue, it's amazing. If you have not yet seen the videos of Cumberbatch doing the mocap for Smaug and like slithering across the room in the mocap suit with the balls, like, you have to go YouTube that right now. Well, maybe finish the podcast, and then once you're done doing what you're doing,
don't leave us,
then go look that up, because that's a lot of fun. But I love Smaug. Smaug to me is the only pure precious part of the movie that I think is untainted. I'll let you jump in, and then I'll mention one other scene that I love that much, and then we can move on.
Cool. Yeah, the only thing I want to say is that if anyone has a chance to see the appendices of these,
I still haven't.
I would put the appendices of The Hobbit almost on par with the appendices of Lord of the Rings, which is weird because the movies are so uncomparable in the sense of quality, but the appendices, the behind the scenes, are both equally extensive and equally interesting to watch in terms of creation. And there are some moments that come through that are very real. about like what was going on behind the scenes. Like not everything is not like there's a lot of polish. Sometimes though, something comes out that's interesting. But yeah, I've always loved the appendices for The Hobbit as well.
Nice. I still want to get to those. The other scene, like that is, I say Smaug is my favorite scene. I mean, it's a whole, hour of this 9-hour movie or hour and a half, whatever. Any scene with Smaug is pure, in my opinion. The only other thing that comes close to that is the scene with, I mentioned this, with Gollum and with Bilbo.
Riddles in the Dark.
It's really well done. I don't know that it's it's quite as perfect as the scene that we have in the book. But I think it gets just about as close as you can possibly get to perfecting that on the visual screen.
It shows what The Hobbit could have been, because those were some of the first things that they shot as Bilbo. And it was just several days of him and Smeagol, that actor, I can't remember his name right now, help me out.
Oh gosh.
Andy Serkis, there we go.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah. Those two guys just practicing, rehearsing, working it out, and then going at it with each other, just one-on-one scene work. And, because they spent time working the scene, they also spent time planning the camera movements, the lighting, and so it was just that's how a film should be. It was pre-planned, it was pre-set up, practiced, rehearsed, then filmed and edited well. Like, that is what The Hobbit should have been through the whole thing. But it just wasn't.
Yeah, it's a very much mixed bag trilogy, because I'm always going to be open to watching them.
Yeah.
But I'm rarely going to seek them out.
Yeah, same.
And I love the Lord of the Rings movies so much. These just don't quite get there for me. So.
Yep, same. It's a bummer.
They're still, I've got them in my recommend section. I'm not going to sit here and say avoid them. But I wish to God that we could somehow get a Snyder Cut version of the Hobbit trilogy, because I really think if you cut this into 2 movies, somehow take all the CG orcs out and put regular orcs in, like, I think this movie would automatically be like 10%.
I would love to see the Guillermo version. I don't ever want them to remake Lord of the Rings, but if they're down to give Guillermo money and to just go ahead and make his whatever it was going to be, just make it, I would see that. Like, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I'll probably check out anything that GDT makes at this point.
Yo, GDT, what's up?
GDT! Alright, that's enough about the Hobbit trilogy. Let's go back over to you, John. What is next on your docket? Your schedule?
So I have an avoid this time. There's a little bit of negativity this week.
Dun, dun, dun!
So mine is going to be interesting for some people. I'm not sure if everyone's going to agree with me, but that's okay. It's called an opinion. Raya, I can't remember, and The Last Dragon. Is in my avoid section.
Is this Pixar or is this just Disney?
The Disney, Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Just Disney. Okay.
It's how to go with this? Why am I avoiding this? So it's very beautiful, very well animated, very professionally done. The music's nice. The voice acting's top quality. The story is run of the mill, generic, right down the center. It's a fantasy story, but it's the fantasy that, you type into Google AI, generate a fantasy story, and the short story you'll get is what the AI generated for Raya and the Last Dragon. The world was in danger, the dragons saved the world, but were destroyed by it, and they left behind a gem that was a symbol of their sacrifice to save the human world. And the world is made up of what looks to be a dragon, like the river that makes up the whole world is a dragon, and the land around the river is named after a correlating body part that they're near. So, like, at the head of the dragon river is Fang, the nation of Fang. Then at the chest is the nation of Heart, the Heart Nation. Then there's Spine, and then there's Tail, and there's one other, I can't remember what the other one was.
And this is how, like, the map is broken up in this world?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The intro really brings out Avatar vibes, like the Avatar Last Airbender intro.
Oh, okay.
And not in a way that's like, oh, this is kind of evoking that feeling. It was more of like, this just feels like Disney was like, yeah, let's do that. That's popular right now. And then slapped a new coat of paint on it for their movie. The plot is just like, bad guys cause that doom problem from before to return. The hero loses everything. proceeds to have to try and find a way to save the world, and it involves finding the gem that the dragons left behind and using it to banish the evil that you're told is a mindless plague that turns people to stone. Then later, a character talks about how the creatures are motivated to destroy and that they have not like plans. They don't say they're intelligent, but they definitely say that they have intent. I'm like, so what are they? Are they mindless or do they have intent? Like, what the fuck is this? It's so punny and quippy. Like, there's Marvel quip, then there's this.
Interesting.
Like, basically every scene, especially a scene with a fight scene, has a quip. Like, you know, the character pulls out a sword, they're like, oh, you've got a sword. And the person goes, you know me, I like pointy things. And, like, that's a very dumbed down version of what I'm talking about. But, like, that's how it goes. That's the cadence. Someone says something. Someone quips back. Someone uses sarcasm. Or breaks out a pun. Puns are everywhere in this movie. And I love puns. I am a punny man. But holy shit, I have a limit. It's just a generic plot of the world is doomed. Save it with gem. And the gem was actually just part of it. The whole time it was about trust, not just the gem. Things are nice at the end. And that's it. And you gotta go through about 10,000 puns and quips to get there.
Dang.
But if kids will like it, here's the problem. If I say avoid, but like kids will enjoy it, but I argue that Pixar, at least, has proven that you can make movies for kids without sacrificing the enjoyment of the wider audience. Sometimes Pixar goes too far, I think, in the sense that I think Soul was very much oriented more towards the elder audience than the children. I think Raya is the opposite. It's oriented too much towards the children in the sense that it's not a dumb movie, but it's too simple and too flashy. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's just not for adults. It's mainly for kids. And I kind of just had a difficult time caring.
Yeah, this is a movie that has not really hooked me or interested me all that much. Like, I guess honestly the reasons that I'm interested in seeing this are more for like movie nerd reasons. Like, I want to know what like how did Kelly Marie Tran do? How was Aquafina?
I want to see the new hotness.
Yeah,
now.
like it's that kind of stuff. The animation for this movie is what always made me go like, I don't know if this is going to be for me, because the dragon, at least in the cover poster, the dragon looks more like a My Little Pony figure than an actual dragon. Like, I remember it having like huge eyes, like that whole Disney effect, and it made it look like a furry pony more than an actual dragon to me.
It's like weirdly, it is Disney-fied, but it's trying to do more of a Chinese, dragon idea of a dragon, because it's a relatively Western idea to think of dragons as being scaly giant lizards. Dragons in the East are often more fur, slender, not many wings, really, mostly 4 legs, and very quick, and symbols for like luck or good fortune, such like that. So I like that Disney allowed for the Eastern image of a dragon rather than just the West, but the dragon is one of the ones that's guilty of a lot of quips. The dragon makes dumb jokes, like at one point, you see it in the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler, the dragon turns into a human form. This is intentional. It's not a problem in the film, but they turn into a human, and the thing that they say about being a human is, look how close my butt is to my face!
Gosh.
And I'm like, wow. And that's the dragon pretty much the entire film. Like, not to say they don't have touching or funny moments every now and then, but the dragon's pretty dumb. And not in the endearing way entirely that I think Disney was intending.
Yeah, it sounds like a really simple, straightforward movie. Like, some of the world building sounds a little bit complex with the lore, but like the story itself, the actual mechanics of the movie, the plot, doesn't sound all that gripping or interesting. Like, I haven't heard anything about it so far that's made me go, you know what? I wanna check this out. I don't know that I agree with John. I wanna like, everything you're saying is like, that's probably how I'd feel if I saw it too.
Catch it when it's done being in Premiere Access.
Yeah, because it's like like Mulan was, it's like $30 to watch it right now.
Yeah.
It's
I
not worth
don't
that.
think it's worth it. I mean, the only reason I would ever justify it is if you have multiple children, and let's say you know for a fact that in a different time you would have seen this in theaters. Say, if you have 2 kids and a wife and yourself, you're spending around $30 going to the theater.
Oh, for sure.
Not to mention popcorn and soda, which you can get for dirt cheap comparatively from not the theater. So you're technically saving money at that point if you have your own popcorn and soda and you watch it at home for that fee. That's the only justifiable reason to do that. But if you're like me or Logan and it's just you and a spouse or just you, definitely not worth that kind of a fee.
Yeah, I have yet to see a movie come out that I needed to pay that, like $30 to rent.
Yeah.
I don't mind like renting a $4 thing off of Amazon Prime. That's something that Jacqueline and I do a couple of times a month. Because it's just easier than waiting until the next time I go to the used DVD store or buying the disc on Amazon and waiting for it to ship to my house. It makes sense for parties, makes sense if you've got kids, gatherings kind of thing, if you're going to your parents' house for the weekend or whatnot. But just me and my wife at home, I'm not paying $30 for that. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for that to become free. And Mulan has been free to watch on Disney Plus for a little bit. And I still haven't clicked on it, and that's probably what's going to happen here with Raya. I still haven't seen the new Lady and the Tramp movie. It took me like a year to watch the new Aladdin movie, even though I had free access to it. It's crazy. If back in the days of Movie Pass, like I would have been watching everything, Friday night or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was just so readily hooked into that culture. But thanks to COVID, there's not really that whole I gotta see it now like rush.
Yeah.
No sense of that. Absolutely, I don't give a shit about that anymore. Like there is no culture around that anymore. So for me, it's like I'll wait 2 months and then maybe I'll continue to not see it.
Yeah, that's probably the case. I only watched Mulan and Raya because they, as you said, that nerd idea of the new hotness.
Right.
I was like, I gotta see what's recent. But yeah.
And if I heard good things, then I might have checked it out. Dude, I still have not even seen Tenet.
I've seen Tenet like 1.5 times now.
I want to, but it's become one of those things of like I've built it up to be like an event movie. Like, okay, I need to make sure that I can like sit down for 3 hours and the whole room can be dark and I won't have anyone disturbing me because it's going to confuse me and I'm going to need to be locked in. So it's kind of become this like...
I'm going to have a hard time hearing it because the audio mixing is fucking garbage.
Yeah, I was waiting till I got the new TV and then I got the new TV and I've had that for 3 months and I still haven't watched Tenet. But yeah, Raya and the Last Dragon. It does not seem like something you need to rush out and see.
Yep. So watch it if you have kids. Don't if you don't. So that brings us to something that we're more interested in, for sure. This is shows now, people, and we're about to talk about a Disney event that just happened over a period of weeks called WandaVision. With the finale just came out last Friday from this is Sunday, prior to the release.
Yeah, so two days ago.
Yep, and I enjoyed it. This show was a mixed bag, in my opinion, but it was more positive than negatives. The negatives are mostly just because the early episodes were a little rough to get through, but overall I enjoyed it. I think it did great service to giving Wanda and Vision more character, more backstory, and meaning to their characters. And took a shitty romance that Age of Ultron just kind of threw out there, along with another romance that Age of Ultron just kind of threw at us. It made it real, like made it feel genuine, which is really hard considering that Vision isn't a person, not in the traditional meat sense, the meat body. But I liked it overall. So, Logan, what are your overall thoughts of the show?
Yeah, overall, spoiler-free reactions. I was satisfied with the way that it ended. I thought that the show did a really good job of delivering on the promises that it made. There was obviously that side of me that was waiting for 30 big things to happen, and they didn't. But that's just, that happens with every Marvel movie, with every DC movie, with every Star Wars movie these days. Like, in my head, there's always 30 cool little corridors they could have gone down for fan service reasons. And sometimes they'll throw some stuff at you. Sometimes Luke Skywalker walks into the frame. But then sometimes you're just left with the characters you've had all season.
Yeah.
And that's completely fine with me.
Especially if those characters are good characters. I mean,
Yes.
if we weren't satisfied with the characters we had up till the end, then the ending would have been very dissatisfying.
I mean,
I do have issues with the finale, but we'll get to them. But overall, yeah.
Yeah, so overall I was pleased. I think that Wanda's performance, Wanda's character arc was great. They've explored so much more of her in this show than they ever touched in the movies. Really, really enjoyed just all of the character knowledge and the character building they've done with Wanda. Vision's great. Paul Bettany's an amazing actor. There's just so many facial expressions that he makes in that Vision suit that are just amazing. The scenes of dialogue just incredible coming from Vision. Vision is strange. It's sometimes you hear him talk and it's like that's one of the coolest stoner thoughts that I've ever heard anyone say. Because he just frames things in such like a aloof way, I guess, using kind of like archaic language that a normal person wouldn't use. But I really, really like his character. I loved Agnes, Catherine Hahn playing Agnes. She has been one of my favorite like comedic actresses for a long, long time. Loved her performance in this. I thought it was a fun show. I thought it was a cool vibe, flipping back and forth between the sword base and all the really fantastic side characters that they set up at the sword base, and then going back inside of the Hex throughout the show. It really worked for me. I mean, mixed bag for sure. I don't think this was a perfect, amazing show in any sense of the imagination, but I overwhelmingly enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
I don't know from a logic perspective, like give it time and space once I've watched it all the way through again, how I'll feel about it from a quality perspective. But watching it these last 8 weeks, it's been one of the highlights of my week every single week. I'm sad that we're not ever going to be able to come back to this world. This isn't like the kind of show you're like, when does WandaVision 2 come out? Like,
yeah, I don't think we're going to get that. That's done. This is called the series finale, not the season finale. So
yeah,
it's definitely a one and done. And I got the feeling halfway through that it was a one and done.
Yeah.
Especially since I knew this was going to lead into the Doctor Strange film, which is not unknown at this point. A lot of people knew that that's what that was happening. The rewatch I know will be a little tough because like the first 2 episodes really were only held together by their oddity and by me being just wondering and searching for explanations as to what the show was while I was watching those episodes. That's what kept me engaged, was the mystery of what was happening in front of me, what maybe I was missing in the moment to moment. But now that I know everything, watching the episodes again, where it's just a gag of them being in these old-timey television shows, will read pretty slow. The pacing in this show was kind of wonky. It really hit its stride like halfway through episode 3.
Yeah.
And it kept it relatively well after that. But the first 2 episodes are slow. No, even though they're short. The show wasn't as long as I wanted it to be overall. I felt like we were going to get a longer final episode, if not like a longer couple last episodes. I'm disappointed at how certain characters turned out at the end, but we'll get to the finale in the spoiler section. But those are mostly my general issues with the show. And I give it like a 7 out of 10 overall. But if you cut out like the pacing issues, it's probably an 8.
Yeah, I am right there with you in terms of numerical range. I think I'm probably going to float over to the 8 range. I think my biggest complaint is going to be that I just wanted to spend more time with these characters, that I wanted to get more from them towards the end. And I think to me, like, that's totally fair criticism. It's also, like, I think an indication that they were good characters and that it was a good show. Yeah. Because if you want to spend more time with them, like, usually that's a good thing. But yeah, Final thoughts, I guess, just about WandaVision. I think the mood of the show was really, really fun. Really enjoyed how the TV shows kept flipping every couple of every episode, sometimes multiple times within an episode.
Yeah.
There's so much like what the fuckery about WandaVision that I really enjoyed. Rewatching it for the second time is going to be interesting. I mean, I typically rewatch each episode once or twice throughout the week, so I've already seen each episode a few times by now. But rewatching it, like in a binge format, start to finish, I'm curious to know how it will hold up. I'm trying to think of what else to add. Man, everything else I want to talk about is a spoiler, so I'll throw it back over to you.
Well, I mean, I pretty much gave my general thoughts. So yeah, we're around 7 to 8 out of 10, and now we're going to go into the spoiler section.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you've not seen WandaVision, haven't finished it, this is your warning. We are now in Spoiler Town. So, initial thoughts on spoilers out the gate, just a couple. I don't mind what they did with Quicksilver. It's weird that this is the second time Marvel has had a character appear as someone we recognize, but then it's revealed that in universe they're an actor. They did that with the Mandarin. It was Mandarin that was an actor. They did Quicksilver here, but
I didn't make
actor.
that. Yeah.
I don't like that it was played for a dick joke. That his name was Ralph Boner. That's a reference to the director's backstory, the director's history of shooting teen shows, like for the Disney Channel. And so there was a character nicknamed Boner in a like 90s show. I can't remember what it was called. So that was kind of a reference, but it's still a dick joke, and it still didn't read quite right for this universe. But whatever. I hope that they still use him as Quicksilver, but people are based on what Evan Peters has said, it sounds like he's not going to come back, and it was a one and done. Agatha peaked episode 8. Agatha in episode 9 wasn't that interesting, which is real weird but that's because
no, that's completely fair.
When she went full villain and it was just time to fight, she was much less interesting than when she was working with Wanda through episode 8 to find out Wanda's backstory, which was a great sequence. I liked seeing, I was real stoked they did the part with the bomb, which sounds weird. But I remember that from Age of Ultron. I was like, are we gonna see the Stark missile that they watched and it didn't blow up? And boom, we got it. I was like, yes.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Great payoff. I liked seeing her being experimented with the Mind Stone and how that went down.
Yeah, episode 8 was the best episode of the season, in my opinion.
I liked that. I'm disappointed. I didn't want it to be a big villain because I wanted to tie into the wider universe per se. But I just kind of wanted it to be Mephisto situation. I was one of the people that wanted that because Agatha in the comic books does have ties to Mephisto. Like, it's not an unreasonable thought to have. And Agatha working in tandem with someone else also just is always more fun. I like it when villains are like interestingly connected in a way. Not to say she needed to be connected to Thanos or any shit like that. But I like how it's going to feed into Doctor Strange. I just hope that Wanda isn't the villain in Doctor Strange, though it seems like she might be.
No, I am fully convinced that they're going to use her like they used the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four 2. She is the harbinger of chaos, is what the witches say. So
yeah.
She is clearly, like Raven in Teen Titans, going to summon this big, dark, demonic power that's going to come to Earth, and she won't be directly responsible for it, or will she?
Who knows?
I don't know. But that, I think, is clearly where we're going, and that could be all kinds of big cosmic baddies. I just hope it's not Dormammu again. We've been down that road.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
He's boring. He was a serviceable villain for Doctor Strange 1. Let's move on. There are better villains like Mephisto or Nightmare. Nightmare is an interesting villain. And who knows what Wanda will do. She may be the villain for the whole thing, or maybe she's just the harbinger, as you said, of chaos that will start it, and we'll have to figure it out. I figured that when she left Westview at the end, which we'll get to the ending of like how the Westview thing ended, I thought she was going off to Doctor Strange. They mentioned the Sorcerer Supreme in episode 9, and I thought that when she I didn't think Benedict Cumberbatch was going to appear on screen, but I figured that she was going to go to a known sorcerer to teach her, or at least to clear up how magic actually works for her. And because that made sense. She knows Doctor Strange. She has a connection. They're both Avengers, or at least they've both been avenging recently. But no, that didn't happen. She Hulk styled. She went to a cabin in the middle of nowhere.
The end credit scene.
And she's studying the Darkhold, which will probably be what fucks up the world in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Because that's a book of a lot of badness. You shouldn't really fuck with the Darkhold.
I'm wondering, because you hear her son's voices there the last second. So what I'm wondering is, when she brought down the Hex and she, disintegrated Vision and her kids.
Yeah.
Did she condemn their souls to hell, and now she's gonna have to somehow go to hell and break them out, and that breaks the multiverse, or she makes a deal with whoever's in charge of hell, and again, I'm talking about HEL, not HELL.
Yeah.
But the Marvel, planet of dead soul, or whatever, the underworld version in Marvel. That could be a thing. I don't know. But she definitely seems like the kind of character that's going to get involved with breaking up the multiverse or the multiverse of madness. I guess they don't necessarily have to break it like they did in Spider-Man. But, whatever they're going to do, they literally said she's more powerful than Doctor Strange is now.
Yeah, I kind of don't... That's just a head thing, though. Like, I'm not really a big fan of that because the Sorcerer Supreme is kind of Sorcerer Supreme. But she is Scarlet Witch. She is she's a big character of consequence in the comics. So, okay. I was like, all right, fine. But, Sorcerer Supreme, I just like that. Benedict Cumberbatch is the strong sorcerer of the universe, but he has a contender now for sure.
Maybe the time, because I guess he's got the time. Well, he doesn't have the time stone anymore. No, but the
only stone that exists is what left of the Mind Stone in her.
Oh yeah, that's true.
People were going nuts with this theory at one point, where when they realized Agatha's powers were purple and Wanda's are red, they thought and Wanda was messing with reality. People came up with this crazy ass theory that when Thanos eviscerated the stones and turned them into atoms, those atoms shot out and attached to other beings. And so Wanda became the Reality Stone because she could bend reality. No. Agatha became the Power Stone because purple. And I was like, it's not a terrible theory, but that's definitely not what they're doing. There's no way Marvel would go that fucking hard on the stones.
I don't like that at all. That makes sense. But no, I guess okay. So let me ask you about this. What do you think about the line when Wanda was telling Vision that he is the part of the Mind Stone that is inside of her? What exactly happened in episode 8? Did she somehow absorb part of the Mind Stone, like a Horcrux? What was going on there?
I mean,
do you know what I'm talking about?
It's not too wild to me because it sort of it fits the theme of the Soul Stone. So the Soul Stone, you gotta kill someone you love in order to get the Soul Stone, which means that the Soul Stone has at least a form of consciousness, has a form of decision making.
Sure,
it can grant itself to someone for a fee. So the Mind Stone, I think, granted some of itself to her because she already had, from my understanding, innate power. It was inside her. She was capable of magic.
Yep.
The Mind Stone just contributed some of its celestial universe power and amped it to 11, thus forming the Scarlet Witch. And I think that it's accurate that part would stand to reason, that would be Vision, kind of. The problem is that the Mind Stone is Vision because it's the Mind Stone, Ultron, and Jarvis combined.
Mm-hmm.
And that hadn't happened yet when the Mind Stone put some of itself in Wanda during those experiments. Vision, as the intelligence, the mixture hadn't been made yet. So does that mean the Mind Stone? How much of the Mind Stone is Vision? Is Vision the Mind Stone?
Right.
It's so many philosophical questions. Speaking of which, I loved the Vision confrontation.
Yes, that was maybe the moment that made me smile the widest in the whole episode.
Yes.
Was the Vision White Vision conversation.
Yes. I love Paul Bettany did some subtle face acting and voice acting.
I require elaboration.
Yeah, that made him intimidating. Vision's a terrifying opponent to fight. He's powerful. But thinking of Vision as that White Vision and how Paul Bettany played it, I was like, wow. I don't think Iron Man would have been able to stop Vision if he wanted to.
No. No, there was something in Paul Bettany's like eyebrows and jaw that just looked way more menacing than normal.
Yes.
I don't know what it was in that White Vision facial expression, what they did to get that look, but he looked way more brutal than you're used to Vision looking.
Yeah, I appreciated that confrontation. I liked how Wanda solved the fight with the runes. She's a quick learner. She saw those runes once and remembered.
Obvious plant and payoff, in my opinion. Like, as soon as Wanda was trapped in that room and the villain started monologuing, I'm like...
And she explained it. I was like, oh my god, it's Chekhov's gun. Like, it's...
Yeah.
It's going to explode later.
It's a very obvious plant with very obvious payoff. But it makes sense. Like, obviously, that's what I would have done in that situation, too. I would not have thought to put it on the hex walls.
Yeah, it's very clever.
It took me... I've watched the episode twice now this weekend. The second time... I thought, so the first time I watched that, I thought that she must have put the rune spells up like a couple hours ago or something.
No.
I didn't realize that all those times that she was missing when she was throwing at Agatha, that's what she was doing. I just thought she like had terrible aim because she was getting the life force sucked out of her. I did not realize that she was actually setting up those runes in that fight. That was extremely cool. That made that fight way more exciting the second time around, because the first time I was like, what the hell, half of her shots are missing, what's going on? So it was kind of a confusing moment for me.
Yeah, I liked that payoff. Just real quick to touch on the side characters, I liked Wu and Darcy. It's weird to say I liked Darcy. She definitely... you can definitely overuse her, but I think this show did well keeping her balanced. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, though. I just know that. But again, it's an opinion. She was fun. She was more fun in this than she was in Thor. Like, I enjoy Darcy this way more.
They used her great. I wish they had brought her back for one more thing at the end.
Yeah.
Other than the one thing they brought her back for. They needed her to bring her back for an actual dialogue scene. And they just kind of, all right, after Vision flies away from her in the milk truck, or the whatever.
Yeah, she's gone for a while. Yeah,
she
was coming to Westview. She was driving to Westview for a long time.
Well, her last genuine scene of dialogue in the show is right when Vision flies away from her when she's in that truck. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the last real conversation she has with anybody in this show, and I just wish they brought her back for one more button.
I liked Wu. I'm not as hot on him as some people are. Everyone wants a side show of him, like funny X-Files. Maybe
I would so be there.
But like the thing is, like, it really would require a writer to not suck. Like, it would require some pretty good writing that I don't trust Marvel with Wu in terms of being a whole show. But I get why people want it.
I really, really like him. I don't know that he needs his own show. I would be just fine if they Phil Coulson'd him for the next 5 years. Because him and Spider-Man going off each other, that would be great. Like, I really think their chemistry would probably be the strongest in the whole show. I would love to see him walking down the street and Spider-Man webbing up and that kind of... Like, I really think their chemistry would be great. Because Jimmy Woo and Tom Holland both have this... like boyish enthusiasm about them that they're so earnest and they're so good and they're so likable. I don't know. There's just something winning, I think, about their personalities. There's a good natured sense about them. I like him. I don't know that I adore him as much as the internet does, because I seem to, on like Facebook and Instagram, continuously scroll past a lot of like fan stuff about him. I'm not to that level, but I like him a lot, and I think they could roll him in more, especially now that Samuel L. Jackson's not really doing much on Earth. He's up in space, and you don't have an Agent Coulson.
I think Wu could definitely be involved with Sword at least, or have his own situation going on. They never solved the missing witness. He had a missing witness that kicked all this off. That never resolved. Like, who was it? Why was Wu ever involved?
Oh, I don't remember any of that.
Completely left that out. Maybe it's not that important, but like it just feels a little weird to leave that open like that. I liked the end of the Hex. It was very touching. It was very telling that Wanda said, "Thank you for choosing me as your mom." That raises a lot of questions. I have additional questions about the children now.
Yeah, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, it's like, that is a very specific thing to say. Like, that means something else. But then the goodbye with Vision was a good scene.
That wrecked me, dude.
Yeah, that was an emotionally charged scene. Like that sold their relationship.
Oh, man,
I already believed it, but like that completely sold it entirely. Like that scene was like, oh man, fucking Wanda and Vision, goddamn. But I'm curious about White Vision, what he's gonna factor in, whether or not he's gonna be her beau again. I honestly don't think so. I don't think this Vision is the same anymore. Like, he got his memories back and such, but I think there's something else. There's a harder edge to this White Vision than there was to the original Vision in general. So the relationship's going to be different if there is one. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll get a paint job and he'll be back to normal. Who knows? But he also just kind of flew away and we didn't see what happened to him. He's just gone for now.
Yeah, I have so many questions about White Vision. Like, that's honestly where most of my questions go. Because with Wanda, I'm like, I have a lot of questions. I don't have any answers, though. So I'm not really even going to wonder if she's going to team up with Doctor Strange. Maybe she could even team up with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Who knows? But that's that. White Vision, though, I have so many questions when it comes to White Vision, because the way that they leave that scene, like, first off, that scene,
great,
phenomenal. Yes. The Theseus ship conversation, that was what I was talking about when I was like,
seeing the AI mentally duel like that is great.
Yes, yeah. Like the two stoner conversations, like, if you were to remove all of the planks and replace all of the planks, would that ship then still be the original ship, or would it then be a new ship? I loved it. Like, they took so long to speak. It was kind of like the Ents. Like, they can sometimes take so long to speak their sentences that by the time that they have completed their train of thought, you're way past them, and it's just so funny. But I love that scene. But the way that the White Vision just flies off, and he goes, "I am Vision," and in the Paul Bettany normal voice, and then just flies off. I have so many questions because, one, if that is going to be like okay, Vision's back. Let's say that Vision's back, if you could say that. Then what did Vision get back? Did he get all of his memory right up until the moment that Thanos scrunched his head in? And he doesn't remember the snap? Like, did he just fly off into a world and has no fucking clue that Thanos is dead and the snap has happened and all this stuff? Or did he get all of the memory that Vision 2.0 had in the Hex? And so now he's got the full vision of, the full memory of being Vision. Like, I don't understand how much memory he has, and then what is his prime directive, if you will. Yeah. Because I thought it was Wanda, but he does not fly to Wanda. He's going somewhere else and fast. So does he, for some reason, have a sense of, I need to go do this mission right now? Because he seems like he's going somewhere with a purpose, the way he flies off like that. Maybe he just, all right, I'm going to go find a place to brood about my existence, or...
Yeah, honestly, that's the implication I got. I thought he was piecing out...
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought he was piecing out to, like, go through all of the information he just got and to reconnoiter himself.
Interesting.
The thing I told Annabelle before we watched the episode, the one thing that would have just blown my mind and made me just, sexually satisfied for days, not to make it weird or anything, but... I said, I really hope that when White Vision gets, either White Vision or the other Vision eventually get reconnoitered, they're back to being physical, they can live outside the Hex, and he's back, which I figured was going to happen, and it did. I really hoped that when they unlocked him, that it was like a deep unlock, like everything got opened back up in his brain, and that one of the teasers at the end of the episode was going to be White Vision contemplating maybe standing on the Eiffel Tower, looking over the world and contemplating existence. You just hear his thoughts, and in the back of his brain, you just hear, "Hello, Vision." I'd have been like, holy fucking shit!
Yeah, I was wondering about the Ultron card as well. I wondered if Ultron was the bad guy behind all of this, That was definitely something that I was maybe not hoping for, but open to, if that makes sense.
I honestly was hoping that it would do that because I would like Ultron to come back. He's a virus. He's mechanical. Vision was built by Ultron. Part of Ultron is in him, always. It's a fact. So it's always possible for him to, like, some source code to get, like, awoken or completed. that brings his consciousness back, maybe within Vision or something involving Vision. And I liked the idea that he could be maybe not the main, he wouldn't be the next big main bad of the next phase or anything, but like he'd be a force, a problem, because he's that way in the comics and he's that way in the animations. He's never necessarily the biggest bad guy of that show or given arc, but he's a fucking problem, and he pops up a lot and in inconvenient times. So I was hoping for that, but nah, we didn't get it.
Yeah, I was really, really hoping for Reed Richards. That was my big... All right, Paul Bettany said someone big's coming in. It's gonna be Reed Richards.
Did we not get an answer to her fucking engineer?
Oh my god, have you not seen the video clip of Paul Bettany talking about this?
No.
He was talking about himself.
No, well, yeah, I remember him talking about that. I'm talking about her, Rambo, having someone she was texting all the time.
No, I don't think they ever did anything with that.
Yeah, I was...
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, I don't think they ever did anything with that. I don't remember her friend or her engineer or something friend.
That's what everyone thought was going to be Reed Richards, maybe. But I was like, no, they're not going to do the first family just in WandaVision as a reveal. I'd love to see the first family. It better be John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, but I would love to see the first family, but it wasn't going to be in this show. And yeah, Paul Bettany's fucking... I can't imagine how that felt, where he said that as a joke, and then the internet fucking exploded. And he's just like, oh my god, it was a joke. Oh no, am I in trouble? What did I do? And even got to Kevin Feige, where Feige was like, honestly, I think people are going to be disappointed. He's like, there's nothing. It's not. When I saw Kevin Feige say that, I was like, okay, so all the fan theories are wrong. Like, that's just a fact. And can't imagine being Paul Bettany that like week leading up to the finale, just like, oh fuck, whoops.
I love this. I love watching celebrities and, you know, talk show interviews and stuff like that. And I saw that some kind of a headline about like Paul Bettany talks about like practical prank he pulled, and I was like, what? I click on the article and I read it and watch the video clip, and I was sitting there watching him, and he's on like what, Good Morning America of all places, talking about this,
something like that.
Okay, Disney Family Network, I guess, but the way he talked about it just fucking blew my mind. I think this must be one of the latest and greatest like viral marketing experiments that we've seen with movies, because I honestly think that this was a all-time prank. Like, this was one of my favorite things that's happened so far this year, because I think it's hilarious the level of trolling that Paul Bettany went to, and he didn't mean it that way, but it happened that way, and then he didn't fix it, and Disney didn't fix it, and they just let it happen and let it play out. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I love that the joke is that Paul Bettany said that he there's going to be this big cameo at the end of the show, and he gets to play against somebody he's always wanted to act against, somebody he's got all this respect for, and it's himself, because he's the White Vision. Yeah. So it's Paul Bettany versus Paul Bettany for the last episode. And I love that. I thought that was great. But what an incredible troll. Because everyone, like even you and I, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about all the people that could be on there. Are we going to get Doctor Strange? Are we going to get, the first family? Like, who is going to come in and be this big cameo? We talking, and it turns out to just be good old Paul Bettany. So I thought it was hilarious. I'm honestly not disappointed in the slightest. I feel just respect for the game. But I'm not disappointed in the slightest. I've seen so many whiny like news articles online, not people I know bitching about it, but like actual like publications like bitching about the show or talking about how people are bitching about the show for not meeting their expectations. But it's one of those things of like, no one in the show promised that you would get the X-Men introduced into the MCU in WandaVision. Yeah,
that was never the plan. Like
many people like just have an air of entitlement that needed to happen or the show wouldn't be good, and that's just
everything that the MCU puts out need to hint and connect to the next thing coming out.
Yeah.
Like, WandaVision is connected to Doctor Strange, but like it didn't need to set up the next phase of the MCU.
They said this is that's the thing is they said that they're setting up like all of Phase 4 is basically like hooked into WandaVision, and so I think
it kicks it off in a way that it goes into Doctor Strange, but I think Doctor Strange is going to be more consequential for the wider phase.
Sure, yeah, that's completely fair. I might liken this to the first Avengers movie in that, like, okay, we've got a couple of artifacts that we know are super powerful, but we don't really know what they do. Because I remember at the time of seeing the Avengers in theater, I knew Loki's staff was important. I didn't know what an Infinity Stone was in 2012 when this movie came out. So I didn't know that Loki's scepter was one of the Infinity Stones. And I didn't know all this stuff about Loki's background. So I think that this show has kind of introduced a lot of this stuff, and they'll continue to play it out. But I don't think that they were going to reveal who the big bad of Phase 4 is going to be in this show, but I think that Wanda is clearly going to be connected to that big bad.
I'm intimidated and interested to know what she ends up doing. Her astral projection at the end there while she was still awake is impressive and even surpasses Doctor Strange, as they said, because he has to be asleep while he astral projects, or at least his body needs to be incapacitated. And she doesn't, so she's definitely going to be a problem if nothing else. So I'm curious to see what happens, but overall I was satisfied, and I'm glad we got to see this. Thank you, Marvel.
I couldn't tell, was she astral projecting, or was she just like putting out like a false image?
I think that
wasn't actually Wanda getting coffee or tea. It was just
No, I got that she was astral projecting,
like a perception,
while also just hanging around the house.
That's badass. That is truly badass then.
Yeah. So I think...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool.
So I'm curious to see what happens in the wider universe. But that's WandaVision, everyone. Let us know what you thought of WandaVision down in the comments below. But that brings us to our report back section. This is where we talk about movies we were given last week to watch for this week, and then we'll assign each other the next week, and on and on and on and on until we die. So Logan, let's get into yours. I assigned you Seven Samurai. This is a legendary Eastern film, a samurai movie that has inspired the likes of Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Magnificent Seven. It's had an effect on the industry. What did you think of it?
Well, all right. So Seven Samurai is a big, giant, intimidating movie. It's like several others that John has thrown at me, whether it's been Citizen Kane or Apocalypse Now. There are these big, giant, intimidating movies because they're so important, and I think that there's often a lot of pressure that you need to like these big, important movies in order to like feel that sense of status as a movie fan. Seven Samurai for me was probably the most... what's the best way to phrase this? Seven Samurai was for me, when I go back to watch old films for the first time, I normally get the sense of, all right, I've enjoyed watching this movie. I respect what they were doing. It's very much a product of its time, yada, yada, yada. It's good for what it was. Seven Samurai was one of those movies that just went above and beyond that. It didn't necessarily feel like a 65-year-old black and white Japanese film in subtitles. There was something about this movie that came to life for me and just ingrained itself and seared itself into my mind in a way that a lot of these other big classic movies haven't. This hit me harder than Apocalypse Now. This hit me harder than 2001: A Space Odyssey. This hit me harder than a lot of those movies that John has thrown my way over the past year, couple years. I really like Seven Samurai. I could see the modern influence all over this movie. Everything from the way it's shot to the actions, the characters, not stereotypes, but the character templates, the roles. Not good with words tonight. The score of this movie. This movie really does feel like the groundwork for 100 big giant action movies that I've grown up my entire life watching. So it was really fascinating to dive into this. I'm not gonna go super like deep. It's a 3.5 hour movie. It's meaty. There's a lot that goes on in this movie, but there's always something happening in this movie. This is an extremely busy movie in the way that you don't sit there for 2 to 3 minutes on landscape tracking shots. They don't really mess with that in this movie. Like, there are always characters on screen. There's always something happening. There's not necessarily always dialogue, but there's always something happening, some kind of action or motion or movement or decision or thought process that's happening. And I found it to go by really, really fast. I started it last night, Saturday night, started at around 10 o'clock and finished it around 1:30.
You fucking, you got into that late.
Look, I started playing Spider-Man on the PlayStation again, and I have a hard time wanting to do anything in reality when I could just go be Spider-Man on the PlayStation. So
I want to be Spider-Man.
I kept looking at my clock, like, all right, it's 7:30. I need to start 7 Samurai. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I need to start 7 Samurai. Okay, it's 9:45. I have to start 7 Samurai. But man, this movie just knocked me away. I really, really enjoyed this. I want to go back and rewatch this later this year. And I also really want to go check out several other movies by Akira Kurosawa. He seems like one of those directors that there are 10 movies he's got that I would really like or love if I would just give them a chance. So I really want to pursue more of his movies. He is one of the biggest, the most revered movie directors of all time. And I am just now popping my cherry when it comes to Kurosawa. There's just an overwhelming amount of movies that he's directed 34 credits on IMDb. Seven Samurai, I think, is the biggest, the most popular one. Yojimbo is another one that I've heard quite a lot about. Ikaru is another one that I've heard quite a lot about. Stray Dog, Rashomon. There's all movies that I've heard of, and I would like to see these. I think Seven Samurai is absolutely one of those gateway movies for me, where it unlocked something in me that made me go, you know what? I need to watch more movies by this director. I thought that the acting performances were just incredible in this film. For the age that it has, it doesn't feel it. You don't really feel the length of this movie at all, and the characters are a lot of fun to be around. It is a dark, violent movie, but there's a lot of humor in here as well. A lot of humor. The samurai are laughing a lot in this movie. There's a lot of really good fun in this movie. The basic story here, you've got a village that is going to get raided by bandits later in the farming season, and they don't want to get raided for obvious reasons. So they decide that they need to hire some samurai to protect them. So they go out, and the first half of the movie is getting the samurai, and then they have to go back to the village, and then they have to basically like reconstruct the village to defend it and train everyone in the village to fight. And then the second half of the movie is the bandits attacking, and it's this big, awesome, bombastic fight scene after fight scene after fight scene. There's so many different kinds of samurai in this movie. That's one of the fun things. We gotta go get the gang part of the movie is so much.
Gotta assemble the team.
It's so much fun. It really is. Even for how old it is, like it's just a lot of fun. You see so many really arrogant asshole samurai reject him. There's a couple of like really weak and wimpish samurai, and there's they're kind of like bounty hunters in some ways. And so there's this huge range of weapons and huge range of dress and appearance and stuff like that. And the battle scenes, like there's all kinds of stuff that gets used. There's maces and swords and spears and knives and bows and arrows and all kinds of stuff. And it looks so good. I was really just shocked with how much I enjoyed watching this movie, how well it looked. I really have only seen it once, so I'm not going to sit here and comment on, yes, this is one of the top 10 movies of all time. But Seven Samurai rocked for me. This is going to be something that I'm going to want to check out a few more times in the near future, along with several other big works from Kurosawa. So I would fully recommend this movie. This was a really, really big win for me.
Interesting. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've never seen it from beginning to end, but I've watched Magnificent Seven, multiple versions of Magnificent Seven, which are direct descendants of this film. The the Western genre in general is informed by the samurai genre, but Magnificent Seven, while being a Western, is also just literally Seven Samurai, but for cowboys. So it is honestly, I believe, a timeless story. It's simple, easy to understand from multiple cultures apparently, and it works across generations. So I'm not surprised it holds up because obviously the formula works still to this day. We got a remake just like 4 years ago with like Chris Pratt and Denzel Washington. So it's still in the cultural zeitgeist. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Cool. So that would bring us to my report.
Let's do it. What did you think about your movie?
I watched The Wind Rises by Studio Ghibli, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. Everyone knows I'm a fan of Ghibli. It's on HBO Max. If you haven't seen any Ghibli films, go watch them. I think you need to start with Spirited Away. It's the easiest entry point. It's got the weirdness that you can expect from Ghibli, but it's also one of the more well-constructed ones. So I think it's definitely a good start. The Wind Rises is less weird. It's based on a real-life character named Jiro. It's Jiro. He, at least in the English spelling, I should say. He is the Japanese man who is credited with the primary engineering of the Zero Japanese fighter for World War II. He, as a person, was infatuated with flight. He wanted to make airplanes because he thought flying was neat. He didn't really want to create weapons of war, but that's what nations do. So it's about his creation process, going from point A, where they have no airplanes, to getting wood airplanes, to figuring out how to use metal. You see them visit Germany to learn from those engineers. You see his friendships. He falls in love. And has a very cute, very touching, very bittersweet romance with this woman who is incredibly important to him. And she's played by Emily Blunt, at least in the English cast. The main character, Jiro, is played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. There are a ton of big actors in this movie for the English cast. And I'm talking like Martin Short, Stanley Tucci, John Krasinski, Werner Herzog, Mandy Patinkin, Elijah Wood, William H. Macy. It's one of those star-studded Ghibli films because, Hollywood figured out that these films rock, and so a bunch of celebrities always want to jump in. I think that it was a touching, very slow movie. It's 2 hours and 6 minutes, but it takes its time. I call this one of the more contemplative Ghibli films. It likes to wax philosophy sometimes. It has deep conversations. The Stanley Tucci plays an Italian plane engineer who Jiro dreams about and has literal dream conversations with that are very philosophical and have double meanings. And I put this in the same vein as From Up on Poppy Hill. It's a slice of life. This one's more historically true. The other one's a full-on fiction. This is based on real life. But overall, I'd say the pacing and the feeling are the same. I will watch From Up on Poppy Hill over this one. This one is a little slower feeling, and the romance is sad. The ending is very bittersweet. The romance and the plot, both. Because it ends in World War II being a thing, and his planes being made into these murder machines. And, any creator who wasn't making something for war, but it gets turned into a weapon, it's always kind of a death in themselves. And so you kind of see that in this, where the man who created the airplanes kind of feels that inner death of my very pure intention of just making flight turned into this wicked thing, and that sucks. But overall, the IMDb gives it a 7.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes is at 88%. I'm around the 80% mark. I'm 8 out of 10. It's good. It's well done, well voice acted. It's a beautifully animated film because it's fucking Ghibli. So if you are a fan of Studio Ghibli and you have not seen it, it is worth the watch. If nothing else, you get a new perspective on World War II, and I think that's always a good idea because a lot of people were involved in World War II, not just whatever nation that you are residing in. It was every nation almost. So it's worth seeing those multiple perspectives, and this is an interesting telling of World War II from a Japanese perspective, and I like that.
Yeah, that's a World War II perspective that I really have not seen or read of very much. So Wind Rises definitely seems like something that I should check out at some point. I think the strange thing for me is going to be watching a Miyazaki movie that doesn't have some weird fantastical element to it.
It takes some getting used to, but I think I've settled into it. I think I like knowing that I can handle the weird and the normal from Ghibli, and they're both done well. I was, not too long ago, I'd only ever seen the fantastical ones, the fantasy-based ones, and that was what Ghibli was to me. Now, I see there's more to it, which there always has been. I just wasn't exposed to it, but I think it's worth exposing yourself to that wider range for sure.
Cool. Well, whenever I get through a Miyazaki binge sometime in the near future, I will add this one to probably the middle or bottom of the hit list.
Nice. I hope you see it soon.
Cool.
I hope anyone who's listening to this has any interest definitely watches it. But otherwise, that is my report. I enjoyed it. Thank you. That was a good movie. So let's get on to assigning each other movies. So I'll go ahead and get mine out of the way because mine inspired a little something fun in this episode.
Yes, you have to go first here.
So I saw on Logan's list a comedy from years ago starring Jack Black called School of Rock was available, and he and Jacqueline both want to see it.
Never seen it.
My memories of this are fond. It definitely will most likely be a little dated. I think you'll get an of the time feel, but I think it's a sincere and cute enough comedy that it just flies under the radar for that. Like it's okay that it's a little aged. I think this is one of Jack Black's better performances. It's one of his funnier performances. I like the message this has. It's another classic school movie. If someone was like, I want to watch a movie about being in high school, whether it's from a student's perspective or not, but the movie is oriented around school. This would be top 20. Like there'd be a list of them, and this would definitely be there as an option to watch, and I'd be okay if it got picked, if that makes any sense.
All right. I mean, it's School of Rock. It's Jack Black. This is one of those movies that I somehow made it through my childhood without ever actually watching this. It's not like I wasn't allowed to. I just wasn't the most interested, I guess, in School of Rock. I wasn't that much into playing instruments. I loved hearing music, but I didn't know anything about music. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I avoided this movie, because I don't really know anything about music, and it kind of makes me feel insecure that I don't know anything about music, so I'm just going to avoid School of Rock. But I like Jack Black. Even when I was a kid, I thought Nacho Libre was one of the best comedies that had ever been made when I was, 10 years old. So I don't know why I never watched School of Rock. Jacqueline's been trying to get me to watch this. I don't think she's super enthusiastic, but I feel like anytime you say, I've never seen School of Rock around a millennial, they're going to be like, oh my God, what the hell?
What's wrong with you? How dare you insult my religion?
I do think it is one of those voice of a generation type films. So I want to check this out. It's also a Richard Linklater film, which is strange to think that the guy who made School of Rock went on to make Boyhood. But I like Linklater. So... Cool. So my assignment to you.
Yes.
I saw that you assigned me School of Rock, and I was like, sweet. I wonder if there's anything similar to that on John's wish list. So I went over to your, watch list. So I went over to your watch list, scroll down, and lo and behold, I saw Rock of Ages on your list. And I was like, this is perfect. School of Rock and Rock of Ages. So Rock of Ages, this is that really interesting, it's like a musical comedy with Tom Cruise and Julianne, is it Hugh? Yeah, Julianne Hugh. This came out in 2012, and I remember when this came out, and I don't really remember hearing anything good about it.
Yeah, this kind of just flew away. No one talked about this.
But I have heard that there are some really fun things in this movie. That there are some pieces that are better than the sum of the whole. But this has got all kinds of folks in it. I mean, you got Russell Brand, you got Alec Baldwin, Bryan Cranston's in here, Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's a big, giant ensemble musical comedy. And it just fit perfect with School of Rock. So Rock of Ages is your assignment this week. I've never seen it. I don't really care about it, but it does fit the narrative theme, and that's what's important.
Cool. Yeah, I've always been curious about this. I remember The only thing I remember about this movie is there's a moment where I've never seen it. I just saw this out of context, where a fangirl runs in to a room where Tom Cruise's character is, and he's a rock star, and she presents her chest for him to sign, and without even looking, he just takes a marker, signs it, and they move on. Like, it's just a typical event for him. He barely even notices that it happens. And I always thought that was kind of a funny moment, especially to see Tom Cruise play that kind of a character. At least that is directly what I remember from this movie, and I hope I'm not misremembering. But yeah, I've always been curious. Tom Cruise, as weird as he is in real life, he's always an interesting thing to watch, an interesting character actor to watch. Whether or not he's a good actor is up to anyone's opinion, but like I think he's definitely fun. You cannot deny that one of his best performances is in a comedy of Tropic Thunder. Like, holy shit, that role was fantastic. So I'm down to see him in another comedy. So cool, Rock of Ages, School of Rock, nice theme we got going on. Maybe we'll find some other music-based movies to watch during the week, too.
I'm going to predict that I'm going to really enjoy the nostalgia in School of Rock, and that you're going to hate me for assigning you this Tom Cruise performance, because I don't know if you've looked at the images online or seen the trailer anytime recently, but this movie looks terrible. It looks like he saw McConaughey in Magic Mike and was like,
I want to do that.
I want to do that. And then made Rock of Ages. I don't even remember. When did Magic Mike come out? Was that 2010, 2012?
I wanted to say 11, but I could be wrong.
I'm not sure. I did score Magic Mike 2 at a used bookstore. I got it on Blu-ray for $2 this weekend.
Nice.
Let's see here. I just looked up the sequel. Magic Mike was also 2012. That's hilarious. So 2012 had Magic Mike came out in June of 2012. So that is interesting that these two performances came out so similarly to each other. Rock of Ages came out about 2 weeks before. You've got to be kidding me.
So Rock of Ages was first. Magic Mike ripped off Rock of Ages.
Oh, what a joke. Yeah. That's what IMDb says. IMDb says Rock of Ages was June 15th. And Magic Mike was June 29th.
Nice. Interesting. It's funny how those kinds of things will happen. Whether two studios knew that movies were being made, or a movie was getting made and they wanted to copy it, or for some reason there was just something in the air. And they just made similar movies. Who knows?
I actually, real quick, wanted to say that about WandaVision, and I just forgot. But WandaVision and Wonder Woman 2 are so fucking similar.
Interesting.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy, because you're dealing with the main character brought back a dead ex-lover and then has to let go of the dead ex-lover in order to save the world at the end of the movie. Like, it's literally the exact same fucking thing. I wanted to point that out real quick. Except WandaVision does it well. I don't think that Wonder Woman 2 does that well, but yeah, it's weird how Hollywood, every year there's, a sameness that comes out, whether it's we're going to have 3 Hercules movies come out within a year of each other, or we're going to redo Tarzan this year, so here's 3 new Tarzan movies. There's some weird sameness that happens with Hollywood, and Rock of Ages and Magic Mike 2 look like a really comfortable, double feature for a weird Thursday night at home.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this, whether it be bad or good. So I'm ready to get to the next week, and so if you want to be here for when we report next week, you gotta subscribe, you gotta follow, you gotta get on our Twitter, on our Facebook, you gotta do it. That's how you're gonna notice that we've uploaded. I'm not gonna tell you what days we upload so that you subscribe. You'll never know. You'll never find us again, but we want you around.
It's Wednesday.
Hey, hi. Fine, it's Wednesdays, and
you never said that I wouldn't tell them.
Oh, fine, dirty loophole finder. YouTube is also a thing. We release our podcast episodes on YouTube if that's more convenient for you. It's either Thursdays or Fridays, depending on how my internet and YouTube is doing that week. Sorry for the inconsistency there, but I will try to be as consistent as possible. We hope to have you around for the future. We are glad you stuck around to the end of the episode. We are glad you listened to us babble about media for an hour and a half. And we hope that the rest of your week is as good, if not, even if it can't get any better than this. I'm sorry that we make you peak in the middle of the week, but we hope you have a great week otherwise. Logan, let's say goodbye to our friends.
See you guys next week.